We're back and we're here with Terry Pratchett. Terry, welcome back to Fast Forward.
Thank you.
It's been a few years and we have a great deal to talk about because you keep writing so many books. And Snuff is, I believe, is being promoted as your 50th novel.
It's the 50th written solely by myself. I mean, I've done a lot of other things in collaboration.
Good Omens with Neil, some of the others.
Yes, and a lot of the Dinoffs, there were diaries and all kinds of other stuff. Yeah, but in terms of actual novels, yes.
And once again, we're following Sam Vimes around. And I have to tell you, as an avid reader of your work, one of the people I think we know best in the entire cast of characters you've introduced us to is Sam.
Everyone seems to be saying that, yeah.
Well, you've revealed more about his struggle, his own concerns about his weaknesses and the dark side of his personality that allows him to be a good copper. Then he's, for a man who started off half drunk in the first chapter of the first book, talking about what's his name, he's turned into this formidable force for good, not just law, but good in Ike-Morph and in the Discworld. Was that something you wanted to develop with him?
I have to go off on a tangent here.
Please.
No, actually, but the simple thing to say was, no. When I wrote Guards, I thought Carrot was going to be the hero. And Vimes was going to be a kind of background figure. But Vimes pushed his way forward. A friend of mine is making me a bust of the goddess of writers, who I have said is Narrativia, because I believe in narrativium, and if you please the goddess, she will help you.
And
Vimes developed as if I had given birth, I suppose. I mean, he just grew. He changed. I mean, I know I was writing it, but I had no plans. But one thing led to the other, and so the logical outcome of what we've just done moves on to this thing. So that's what happened next, and so on and so on and so on. And Vimes was always there, and sometimes I have to break myself away from writing about Vimes so that I write other things. I want to do the other things as well.
Well, of course, and we want you to do the other things because we want to know about the other people too. But, you know, Sam, Lady Sybil has become, from being this eccentric woman who raised dragons as a hobby, she's become a real person too.
But on the other hand, of course, you see, Vimes was a lush, and she was this rather strange woman, a bit on the shelf. And the two of them sort of came together, not so much that they came towards each other, but they were pushed into the only slots left, as it were. And so it was a late marriage, and therefore all the more treasured, I suspect. And and I'm very glad you pointed it out, because you've said that more accurately. I could have done. Each one has been built up by the other. And the trust that they have between them is wonderful, I think. I'm always amazed at that.
She's taught him how to behave in society when he must.
Yeah.
He's taught her, or at least given her
more... He's brought her back into the real world.
Exactly.
You know, because she was the dragon lady all the time. But now she's involved, and she's very much... Except that she has a much better hairstyle. I always think of her like Margaret Dumont in the Marx Brothers.
Yes, and when she inhales, you understand how empires are created.
But on the other hand, she is smart. I think she's probably smarter than her husband in terms of the original, dyed-in-the-wool smart, because he is street smart. And as we know in the book, she, just with her little notepad and her scented notebook, plays a very, very major role in the whole plot.
And let's talk a little bit about that plot in Snuff. It's fascinating. What we're talking about, essentially, is the plight of the goblin.
Mm.
Now, you've said in a number of interviews that you use humor to open doors and show people and discuss things, that if you were treating it as a serious examination of an issue, people would just turn away and go do something else. But if you make it humorous, if you provide humor, if you provide a wry view, you can talk about serious things, and you have a number of times.
Yeah.
And in this one, it seems to be about the people, the creatures who are dismissed as less than, and therefore are treated as
The
less
human
than.
extremophiles.
Yes, or the Aboriginals, the pygmies, the ones on the edge, the ones that live on the edge because that's all they've got left.
Exactly.
And there are some absolutely heartbreaking scenes in this. I mean, it's a wonderful read and it's a great adventure, but there are some small pauses where you just go, oh no.
I think the most heartbreaking one is the one that you don't see, which is the lady novelist talking about her mother's time.
Yes, which is also fascinating. And
her mother was rescued from humans by goblins, and when people found out that goblins were raising a human child, they killed the goblins and put the kid into a home.
And basically forced her not to be a goblin.
Yes, because she spoke goblin.
Yes. And
there's a lot of human history in that bit.
Yes.
There's research all over the place. Not research I made for it, it's just the research I'd made by just reading everything since I was a kid.
And then the comment that is made at the end, after all I've done, after everything I've achieved, after all my machinations, music changed the world that much at the end. And it was a lovely story, and we got to see some good friends at their best. And I thank you for that. I did want to cover a couple of other things because since the last time you were here, there are a few more little bits of things you've written. There was a small book called Nation that you created that I absolutely loved. I thought that story was just absolutely brilliant and moving and touching, and I could root for well, except for the first mate, I could root for almost everyone in that story.
Yeah.
And it was just an absolute stunner when it came out. I just enjoyed it so much. And it brought me back, along with the ending of the Tiffany series with I Shall Wear Midnight, to something that I've noticed, especially in the second half of the books that you've been writing, is the complexity and the strength of your female characters, your young girls. I mean, you have Daphne in Nation, you have Tiffany in the We Free Men and the other books, you have Granny Weatherwax, of course, and all the others, but you have a facility for writing understandable and perfectly whole and real female characters.
Yeah, what a fan the other day said, real women.
And I wanted to ask you, if I'm not being too personal, how much of an impact, how much of that comes through your experience in your marriage and also in raising your daughter?
My mother was a practical woman. So is my wife. So is my daughter. I mean, still definitely women, but not the kind, as it were, that lose a shoe going over a stile, if you know what I mean. Not the horrible old heroines you used to have that, you know, in the kids series that have to hang along behind because the girls can't play. Yeah. Certainly, I suppose I've lived my life in the company of practical women.
Well, and they're delightful to read. When I was reading Nation, and we get through Daphne's adventures, and where she starts, although she doesn't want to be this delicate little flower sitting off on the side, with the frosting on. I mean, she still is raised where she thinks if she's undressed, if she has less than 4 petticoats under her dress.
Yes. Well, at least, by I think the end of the book, she's more or less in the grass skirt.
And by the end of the book, she's, a girl who would almost faint at the sight of blood is performing amputations to save lives, according to a book someone holds open for her while she saws a man's leg off. And I think to myself, that's a remarkable progression for a young lady in the course of a story.
The dreadful algebra of necessity,
which we'd also discuss with the goblins in a very touching and very sweet way.
Yes.
It's really beautiful and sad and touching and understandable what happens in that when they discuss those customs. And you can see to yourself, that's understandable. I see why they would do that. Yeah, I can understand why that is what is done. Because we have so little experience with necessity now.
No, exactly.
You also did something recently, and I broach it because you've broached it. You did a documentary with the BBC recently.
Correct. In Switzerland.
Yes, and the title of it is, it has been controversial, Choosing to Die. And I haven't seen the entire documentary, but I've been watching it in segments on YouTube and such. But there was one particularly harrowing experience where one man chose to pick his own time to depart.
Well, in fact, 2 did, but you only saw... We followed 2 men to Switzerland. And to Dignitas. And we filmed absolutely with the permission, I won't even say the permission. We were almost expected by them and their families to follow them to the very end, but we thought showing the actual moment of death, you can only do that once. If you do that a second time, you don't do that.
What is it about that why are you so passionate about that right now? Can you tell us?
Partly, I suppose, I wouldn't have been if I hadn't had Alzheimer's. Now, it's a very slow Alzheimer's, but like all Alzheimer's, it will become the same one day. And that's what really got me onto this. And I found that there was a battle there, and I kind of like battles, because it revolves around whose life is it anyway? Why do we... I don't know about care here, and I wouldn't dream to talk, to say I know anything about it at all. But terminal care and long-term care in the UK is a bit of a mixture. Money helps.
Always.
And these days I think there's rather less money. And there's probably another documentary that you may have seen just before mine, also set in England, which was probably even more harrowing. I won't go into it if you don't know about it. And I knew when my late father died, he knew for about a year that he was dying. And he said to me, if you see me lying there with pipes and tubes sticking out of me, knowing that and you know that I'm never going to be better, tell them to switch me off. I didn't have the courage to do that because the nurses were big, beefy nurses. But that seemed to me, when I started talking about that, people agreed. What is the point of leaving someone in the belly of the beast? If we start dying, why not die as quickly and peacefully in your own time?
And you've made mention of the fact that having the option can absolutely change the way that you view and embrace each day as it comes.
Exactly. As I've always said, if I had that, I know that it's practiced in Oregon, for example.
Yes.
And I know that in Oregon you get given the poison. I suppose it's something rather more than just the poison. And you can take it when you want to. And I rather suspect, from things I've heard, that every day some guy might say, not today, because there's going to be a game on and I'd like to see what happens. And then, not today, because the grandchildren are coming down next week. And so every day he makes a choice that no animal can make. He can make the ultimate human choice of saying, yep, that about wraps it up, folks. Kiss everybody goodbye. I'm out of here.
Well, we hope you're not leaving anytime soon.
Not yet.
Because,
I have no...
Well, because as far as I can tell, you probably have at least one book underway, one book under outline, we hope, because we're greedy little bastards we are.
Oh, yeah.
So with number 50, you should already be partway through in 51, am I correct?
Well, I'm writing... back before I really got into writing fantasy, I came up with a title and quite a lot of pages about the long Earth, the quantum Earths. In other words, a device is found, and I'm not being exactly accurate here because I don't want to spoil it all. Press the button, click. You're standing in the same place on the next Earth. And there are no ends to the Earth as far as we can find. Only one thing. We never find any other humans. And that's what much of the plot of the book pivots on. Scarcity has always been a major factor in human affairs. How much game there is, whatever, how much water.
Minerals.
Now, minerals, everything, oil, everything. Now, everyone can have a galaxy's worth. If you can, well, it's a bit difficult getting, well, just by walking, you could cover a galaxy's worth of worlds.
That sounds like it's going to be a great deal of fun to read.
Well, that's why I'm writing with Steve Baxter, the science fiction writer, because I thought one guy can't get all this one down. There's so much stuff you can do. You think, we now have a situation where you could have your biggest spread you possibly could. You know, gold is not really worth all that much, except it is quite nice, because there are billions of Sutter's mills out there.
And there are and quite gold, if it were in plentitude, could be quite useful in a number of ways.
Oh yes, there's lots of other uses for gold.
Yes.
And we're throwing in various other things into this mix, which is because I wanted to do the good old-fashioned Arthur C. Clarke or Larry Niven type exploration SF.
Oh wow!
But putting in a few other things, in the course of which I've learned. I won't repeat them because I'll get them wrong. What a Tibetan will say if he's just slightly annoyed, and what a Tibetan will say if he is really annoyed. And I'm really going to train myself to get that one. And I've learned the Tibetan for cat, which is shimmy, which is rather a nice name, isn't it?
Actually, it fits.
Yeah.
Terry, we're out of time. I wish we weren't. It's been a delight to have you here. Thank you so much for stopping by. I know it's a busy trip. And we will look forward to the quantum Earths when you present them to us with Mr. Baxter.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that's it for this edition of Fast Forward. We hope you found something of interest. We hope you come see us again. Until then, this is Tom Schaad saying, take care.